Hart Foundation Tournament. And now,
all right. We finally got the match. It's going to be Mercedes Moné versus Toni Storm at AEW All In. We're going to talk about what's going to happen with this match and this rivalry more at the Pink Square Circle. Hey, guys, we're here at the Pink Square Circle. We'll talk about Mercedes Moné versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship at AEW All In. You guys get the likes of as we come into the Pink Square Circle. We are going to talk about the match that is finally happening, the match we all been waiting for. Now, we know that Mercedes Moné is qualified to face Toni Storm at AEW All In. They both talked about it at the media scrum. Toni Storm talked about how she's going to face Mercedes, gave her props, her due that we'll hear in a second. And we also heard from the new number one contender for the AEW Women's Championship, Miss Moné, Mercedes Moné. She also talked about how she is going to have a pleasure facing Toni Storm at AEW All In, because at Double or Nothing, we know that in the final of the Owen Hart tournament for the women's division, Mercedes Moné defeated Jamie Hayter to finally get the opportunity to face Toni Storm. Now, these two women have teased facing each other for quite some time now. We heard Mercedes talk about Toni. Toni talked about Mercedes in recent memory. Now, Mercedes Moné is still the current AEW TBS champion that she's held on for pretty much a year now. She held on to the title since Double or Nothing 2024 when she defeated Will Nightingale, and Toni Storm is in her record-setting fourth reign as the AEW Women's World Champion. So the stakes couldn't be any higher. Now, it's not gonna be no title versus title. It's only going to be for the AEW Women's Championship. But I will say this, Mercedes Moné has everything going for her. But here's the thing, is Toni Storm going to finally lose to Mercedes Moné? Will Toni get her first pinfall in her new AEW Women's Championship run? Or will Mercedes Moné finally take the pinfall since arriving to AEW since March of 2024 last year? Now, I will say this, Mercedes Moné, now don't get me wrong, she's put on these, for the most part, decent matches, but she does not put over her talent and her opponent that she faces. Every woman she faced, from Athena, Billy Starks, to Willow Nightingale, everybody, she just don't put them over. But I will say this, she needs to lose. But Mercedes Moné went on Denise Salcedo. She talked about facing Toni Storm. And she also called herself the Beyonce of wrestling. Can you believe that? But we'll check that out in a second.
Really close to me, Natalia Hart, TJ Wilson, D.H. Smith, the Harts, and don't forget Uncle Brett. Hi, Brett. Love you so much. The best there is, the best there was, just like me. But it would mean everything to me to bring that cup home. I guess that would make me 5 belts, Moné, if I could keep that pink title as well. But Double or Nothing is like, it's on my mind. I'm ready to beat Jamie Hayter. She has been pissing me off weeks upon weeks. But really, my goal is to main event All In Texas. That is my dream, that is my goal, and that's what I'm going to get to.
Well, let's talk about that, because Toni Storm has kind of taken the pro wrestling world by storm. Yeah. Mercedes, what are your thoughts on timeless Toni Storm?
Man, I am blown away by her work. Before I even thought about signing with AEW, Toni, I've just been watching her weeks upon weeks, and I was just so captivated by her charisma, by her character, by her presence. I think she is not one of the best women, one of the best talents in the whole world. I've never seen a woman captivate a character so so on demand like she does. She brings so much to AEW, and I can't wait to take that all away from her.
Okay. Well, with that being said, there is a chance that you can walk out. Chance? Oh, possibility for sure, 100%. We'll see. Okay, all right, Mercedes. AEW Women's World Champion, all in.
Yes.
If that moment happens, Mercedes, what would it mean to you to be AEW Women's World Champion?
I can feel the emotions right now. I feel like I'm about to cry. But I'm going to save that for Texas. But really, that's what I've been dreaming about. Main eventing All In. This is our Super Bowl. This is our biggest pay-per-view of the year. And you're talking to the biggest star in all of professional wrestling, of all of women's wrestling. I put women's wrestling on the map. So to do that in Texas, well, I am the Beyonce of wrestling. And I cannot wait to show everybody not only my gear, my outfit, the look, just the match alone. But first, Jamie, there's a price to pay when you mess with Mercedes Moné. So let me just get through Double or Nothing first. Let me recruit after losing my beautiful New Japan strong.
All right, that was Mercedes Moné at the Double or Nothing media scrum, saying that this is how a star looks like, mocking Tony, talking about the shoe and the chin up, and you know what up, and all that stuff. So I will say that she said she gave Jamie Hedder her props in that match, but she believes that it's time for her to take over the AEW Women's Division. And in doing so, the only way she could fully take over the AEW Women's Division in AEW is to capture the AEW Women's World Championship, a championship that Mercedes Moné's never held. Now, reportedly, Mercedes Moné is on the biggest contract in women's history and women's wrestling today. Reportedly, alleged $10 million contract. I don't know if it's that exact amount, but I heard she's on a very, very lengthy contract. And I would say if she is the highest paid women's wrestler in all professional wrestling, she should hold the AEW Women's Championship, the highest honor, the biggest prize for the women's division in AEW. But I know Toni Storm also spoke about that. She responded to Mercedes Moné victory at Double or Nothing. But Mercedes Moné, thing about it is, Toni's been putting in that work for years. She was there way before Mercedes, and she's earned her rightful place, not just the AEW Women's World Champion, but Toni's also earned her rightful place at being at the top of the women's division as a whole. It's her right, but Mercedes Moné, she's going to have to back up what she says when it comes to All In. But I know Toni Storm is going to speak soon about what she said about Mercedes, but she's not going to let it off easy at all. Oh, you got to love Toni Storm or her vulgar language. Always in character, timeless Toni Storm. She was at the media scrum alongside Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, talking about how, she's going to face Mercedes Moné. It will be a good matchup, and making fun, saying that she only wants to face her because of her bottom. And Tony Khan has also stated that since Mercedes Moné has arrived at AEW, she always wanted to face Toni Storm. That's the number one matchup that she always wanted since arriving in the company over a year ago. So we're going to finally get this match at All In. Now, All In is July 12th. Coincidentally, it's the same night as WWE Saturday Night's Main Event. Go figure. How could they get that two shows the same night? But anyway, it's going to be probably one of the more likely main events for the show. Toni Storm and both Mercedes Moné have been in WWE in the past. I don't think they've had a match together, but they have, been the same company. This is the second time these two been in the same company, but they finally get to cross paths. We're going to see timeless Toni Storm, AEW Women's Champion. We're going to get Moné, Mercedes Moné, the Money Train, all of that. Now, thing about that is Mercedes Moné, she has the momentum going into this matchup. We have to realize she still holds 3 other belts. Well, she had 4 belts. Now she has 3 belts. She has the Rev Pro titles, which is 2 championships, the TBS championship, and now she gets to add to another collection, which is the Owen Hart Cup Tournament Championship, which is a pink title. We know they only hold that title at once. She don't get to carry that championship around, but she does. She won a tournament. She's the number 1 contender. And we know that this is going to be the biggest match of Mercedes Moné, the biggest match of Toni Storm. We're finally going to get these two going off. Now, Toni Storm, she said a while back at the media scrum at AEW, I think before Mercedes even arrived, that this is her show her company, she going to be top of the women's division, and no one's taking that from her. She said that a while back, and I think Toni Storm's still going to stand on business regardless of that. And Mercedes Moné, you going to basically have to take Toni Storm and take everything out of her to beat her for the AEW Women's Championship, kind of like how Mariah May did last year at AEW All In. So if I had to guess right now who's going to win between Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné, I got my money on Toni Storm. Timeless is going to win because she's not going to lose this belt to Mercedes. Mercedes TBS Championship will not be, as of right now at least, the TBS Championship will not be on the line at All In. It's only going to be one championship. So Mercedes Moné, she does lose, whether it's pinfall or submission, whatever the case may be, she still gets to keep her TBS Championship. She still looks strong. But I don't see her walking away with the AEW Women's World Championship. That is Toni's title, and she's going to keep that title for a good minute. I don't see her losing it no time soon. If she were to lose it, it's not going to be to Mercedes. It could be to somebody else for that matter. So we have to keep that in mind. But it will be a great, great matchup. Probably one of the biggest matches in AEW history in the AEW Women's Division. And probably the biggest championship match in the titles history of the AEW Women's World title, because the championship is now 6 years old. Toni Storm holds the most reigns at 4. So we got to wait to see what happens, but my money's on Toni. You guys let me know, who do you have, Toni or Mercedes? Who's winning the match at AEW All In? And that's all I have for Mercedes Moné versus Toni Storm AEW Women's Championship. Check out the content here at Pink Square Circle. Click the video below. Until then, guys, I will see you guys later.